Over the course of a month, Kate's vision had drastically deteriorated. The doctors at the clinic just shrugged. One day, on the bus, she took off her glasses to wipe them. An elderly man sitting next to her suddenly said, "Those glasses were a gift from your husband." Kate nodded. "Take them off immediately," he said. "I can see what's inside. Welcome to the Twists of Fate channel. Before we begin, please write where you are watching from. We're very interested. We wish you pleasant listening to this fascinating story." Kate was sitting at her desk, rubbing her eyes for the third time in the last hour. The numbers in the spreadsheet were blurring, the rows bleeding into one another, and she couldn't focus on the quarterly report. Outside the accounting office window, the October day was fading, and the slanting rays of the sun fell directly on her monitor, making work almost unbearable. "Maybe I'm just tired," she thought, leaning back in her chair. She reached for her mug of cold tea and took a sip. The tea was completely cold, with the bitter aftertaste of the tea bag she had forgotten to take out that morning. Kate was 38, and until this fall, she had never complained about her eyesight. She worked as an accountant for a small building materials supply company. The work wasn't strenuous, but it was meticulous. Numbers, invoices, reconciliation statements the whole day in front of a monitor, but it had never been a problem before. Then suddenly, just in the last 3 to 4 weeks, something strange had started. At first, she thought she just needed to take more frequent breaks from the screen. Then she noticed she was squinting to read signs on the street. Last week, she couldn't make out the number of an approaching bus and almost missed her stop. Her colleague, Olivia, who sat at the next desk, noticed Kate frowning and leaning closer to her monitor. "Kate, what's wrong? Your eyes again?" "It's probably nothing. Just tired by the evening. It's already getting dark outside, and the lamp over our desk is flickering again. We need to tell the maintenance guy." "What lamp? It's working fine," Olivia said. "You should go see an eye doctor. Seriously, don't put it off." Kate waved it off, but Olivia's words stuck in her head. That evening, when she returned home, the apartment greeted her with its familiar smell, a mix of laundry detergent, fried potatoes, and something floral from the air freshener her daughter, Lily, had hung in the hallway. The two-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor of a standard suburban building was no mansion, but it was cozy. Kate loved this apartment. It had been her grandmother's, and every corner held memories. The old hutch with the crystal glasses that were never used. The rug on the bedroom wall, Kate had wanted to take it down 100 times, but couldn't bring herself to do it. Her grandmother had chosen it herself. The bookshelf, with a collection of classics that no one read, but which gave the room a certain gravitas. Lily, her 14-year-old daughter, was sitting on the couch with her phone, earbuds in, something bright flashing on the screen. Kate stroked her head. Lily flinched and pulled out one earbud. "Mom, you're so late. I had to wait a long time for the bus. Did you have dinner?" Dad made fried potatoes. From the kitchen appeared Ethan, 42, tall, with a neat short haircut and a confident demeanor, even when the situation didn't call for it. He was a project manager at a construction company, wore his shirts with the sleeves rolled up even at home, and always smelled of cologne, even on weekends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Now, she was just used to it. "Oh, you're back. Want to eat? I made some potatoes. They're still warm." "Yes, please. Thanks." Kate changed, washed her hands, and sat down at the kitchen table. A plate of potatoes, a side of pickles from a jar, bread. Ethan sat across from her, scrolling through something on his phone. "You know, Kate," he began, without looking up from the screen, "I've noticed you've been squinting a lot lately. Yesterday, you were watching TV, and your face was all scrunched up, like you were reading the fine print in the scrolling text." "Yeah, my eyes get tired. I'm at the computer all day. Maybe you need glasses." "I'm serious. Your eyesight is no joke. If you let it slide, you won't get it back." Kate shrugged. She had been thinking about it herself, but she didn't want to go to the doctor. The clinics always had long waits, and private practices were expensive. Another week passed. Her vision didn't improve. If anything, it got worse. Now, by evening, her eyes didn't just feel tired. They burned as if there were fine sand under her eyelids. Kate instinctively rubbed them, which only made it worse. The skin around her eyes became red, dry, and sensitive. In the morning, looking in the bathroom mirror, Kate saw a tired face with inflamed eyelids and thought she looked 10 years older. And then Ethan surprised her. He came home from work one evening with a small velvet box. "This is for you," he said, handing her the box with the air of someone who had done something truly important. Kate opened it. Inside lay a pair of glasses, an elegant, dark frame with thin arms and small decorative stones at the temples. They looked expensive and stylish. "Ethan, what is this?" "I ordered glasses from a good optical shop, with a slight prescription, -1.5 to start. The doctor said that should be enough. Later, if necessary, we can replace the lenses." "What doctor?" she asked. "I called a clinic, had a consultation, described your symptoms. They said it's a standard story. Age-related vision loss often starts this way. They said that glasses with a slight correction would help relieve the strain and your eyes would stop getting tired." "Well, what are you looking at? Try them on." Kate put on the glasses and looked at herself in the hallway mirror. The frame did fit well, neatly, without pressing on the bridge of her nose. In the glasses, the world seemed a little sharper, though maybe she was just imagining it. Lily peeked out of her room. "Oh, Mom, they're beautiful. They really suit you." "Of course. You look so professional now." "Like a boss." Lily smiled and disappeared back into her room. Ethan came up behind her and put his hands on her shoulders. "Wear them all the time, don't take them off. The doctor said for them to be effective, you need to wear them all the time so your eyes get used to the correction. Even at home, especially at home. You read here too, you look at your phone, you watch TV, your eyes are always working. Promise me you won't take them off." All right. I promise." Kate was touched. Ethan really knew how to surprise her. Dinner conversations had been reduced to household matters. They hadn't been to the movies in 6 months, and on weekends Ethan was increasingly busy with partner meetings. But here he was, not just noticing his wife's problems, but finding a solution himself. Maybe things weren't so bad. Maybe he still cared. The first few days with the new glasses, Kate thought things were getting better. The text on the monitor was easier to read. The evening headaches had subsided a bit. She even boasted to Olivia at work. "Look, my husband gave them to me. Stylish, right? They're nice. But you still haven't been to the doctor. Why should I?" Ethan already had a consultation. "It's -1.5. The initial stage, nothing serious. I'm using eye drops, wearing the glasses. It seems to be getting better." But the relief was short-lived. A week later, Kate noticed the burning in her eyes had returned. And not just returned, it had intensified, especially in the evening. When she came home and took off her shoes in the hallway, her eyes burned, they watered, and for the first 15 minutes at home, she would walk around with a damp towel on her face, trying to soothe the stinging. "Maybe you need different drops?" Ethan suggested, watching his wife press the towel to her eyes. "Maybe. I think I should really go to an ophthalmologist. Get a proper examination." "Kate, we've already discussed this," Ethan said. "I called. They explained everything to me. It's adaptation. The eyes are getting used to the correction. Just be patient for a couple more weeks, it will get better. And if you run to every doctor, they'll just prescribe you new glasses, charge you a fortune, and make things worse. I'm trying to help you." Something in his tone, soft, confident, slightly condescending, made Kate swallow her objections. She nodded. She would be patient. If her husband said so, it must be true. But patience was becoming increasingly difficult. By the end of the 3rd week, Kate began to notice that her vision was declining significantly. She could no longer see small text, even with her glasses on. She could only make out bus numbers when they were very close. She read price tags in the store by holding the product right up to her face. Her daughter, Lily, watching this, became worried. "Mom, maybe you should see another doctor?" "Not the clinic," Dad called, "but a real one. At least the one in our network. Lily, your father says it's normal. Adaptation." "Mom, what kind of adaptation? Yesterday you missed the salt shaker 3 times. I saw you. Kate said nothing. Deep down, she knew her daughter was right. Something was wrong. Adaptation shouldn't last this long, and it shouldn't be making things worse. The next day, without telling Ethan, she made an appointment with an ophthalmologist at a local clinic. She sat through a line of 3 elderly women and a man with a patch over his eye, then went into the office. An elderly female doctor checked her vision with a chart, looked through a slit lamp, put in some drops, and looked again. Well, your vision is indeed reduced, but your retina is fine. The fundus is normal. Eye pressure is normal. There is irritation of the mucous membrane, and it's quite pronounced. Are you allergic? No, I've never had allergies. Are you using new cosmetics? Changed your face cream? No, everything is the same. Strange. There's irritation, but I don't see a cause. I'll prescribe you different drops, anti-inflammatory ones. Come back in 2 weeks. We'll see how it's going. If there's no improvement, I'll refer you for additional tests. Kate left the clinic with a prescription and the feeling that nothing had been clarified. She bought the drops at the pharmacy and started using them. It didn't get any better. Ethan, learning that she had gone to the doctor after all, pursed his lips slightly. Well, what did they say? I told you, it's nothing serious. They prescribe drops, so use them. And don't take off your glasses. You left them on the nightstand this morning when you went to work, I noticed. I just forgot. Kate, I'm serious. If you want your vision to stop getting worse, wear them all the time. I didn't spend all that money for them to just sit on the nightstand. She put on the glasses. The arms were slightly warm from being near the radiator. Half an hour later, her eyes started watering again, and Kate habitually reached for a towel. Lily watched from the couch, biting her lip. She wanted to say something but remained silent. Only later, when Kate went in to say goodnight, her daughter suddenly hugged her tightly, in a way she hadn't in a long time, childishly, clinging with her hands. Mom, are you sure you're going to be okay? Of course, sweetie. Of course I will. It's just my eyes. I'll get them treated and everything will be fine. Kate left her daughter's room, closing the door behind her. She stood in the dark hallway, leaning her back against the wall. Somewhere in the kitchen, Ethan was clattering dishes. Quiet music drifted from behind Lily's door. A normal evening for a normal family. Except her eyes were burning as if someone had poured crushed glass into them, and Kate, standing in the dark, thought that darkness was the only thing that brought any relief. The following week, Kate made an appointment with another specialist at a private clinic, 2 blocks from her office. Olivia had recommended it, saying her mother had gone there and was very satisfied. Kate hesitated for a long time. The appointment cost $150, and an accountant's salary at a small firm didn't allow for frequent visits to private doctors. But her eyes were hurting so much that she had started making mistakes in her calculations at work, and her boss had asked her twice if everything was all right. The young doctor at the private clinic was thorough. He checked everything: the retina, the fundus, the pressure, the tear duct, the cornea. He sat for a long time, studying the results on his monitor, tapping his pen on the desk. You know, Catherine, I'll be honest with you, I don't understand. I can't find any organic reasons for such a deterioration in your vision. Yes, there is irritation of the mucous membrane, and it's serious. But it can't cause such a drop in visual acuity. There's something else. Do you work in manufacturing? Do you come into contact with chemicals? No, I'm an accountant, paperwork, and a computer. Pets? Mold in the apartment? Maybe you did some renovations recently? Paint? Solvent? No, nothing like that. The last renovation was 3 years ago. The doctor shook his head. I'll prescribe you some stronger drops and recommend you come back for a follow-up in a week. If there's no change, we'll run more extensive tests. But for now, honestly, I'm at a dead end. Kate left the clinic and sat down on a bench near the entrance. The wind blew yellow leaves across the pavement. A woman with a stroller walked past, and the smell of fresh pastries wafted from the cafe across the street. Kate looked at all of it and realized she was seeing the world as if through frosted glass. The outlines were blurry, the colors muted, the faces of passers-by indistinct spots. A month ago, she could see every leaf on the tree, and now the tree was just a green and yellow cloud. She took out her phone, brought it close to her eyes to see the screen, and dialed Ethan. He answered after the third ring. Yes. I was at the doctor's. They didn't find anything again. See? I told you not to waste your money. It'll pass on its own. Are you wearing the glasses? I am. Good. Give it time. Your body will adapt. Kate wanted to say that her body had been adapting for a month with no results. That she was scared, that she was afraid of going blind, that she couldn't even put on her makeup properly this morning and came to work without it, something that hadn't happened since college. But Ethan had already said goodbye, saying he had a meeting, and hung up, and Kate was left sitting on the bench with the phone in her hand, feeling the wall between her and her husband growing thicker every day. She took the bus home that day as usual. The route was familiar, 20 minutes from the bus stop near the clinic to her neighborhood. The bus was old, with sagging seats and grimy windows, through which the evening city looked even more blurry than it really was. Kate sat by the window, pressing her temple against the cold glass. There weren't many people, it wasn't rush hour yet. The main wave of passengers would come a little later. A woman with heavy bags sat across from her, having placed them between her feet. Behind her, two teenagers were talking quietly, and next to Kate, an elderly man in an old-fashioned but neat coat had taken the adjacent seat. Gray hair combed back, thin metal-rimmed glasses on his nose, large hands with gnarled fingers resting on his knees. Kate paid him no mind. Her eyes had started to water again. That cursed evening hour when the burning intensified to an unbearable degree. She took off her glasses and began to wipe them with the edge of her scarf. Then she took a tissue from her purse and blotted her eyes. Without the glasses, the world became completely foggy, but at least the burning subsided a little. Every time she took off her glasses, even for a couple of minutes, it got a little better. Kate noted this mechanically, without giving it much thought. The elderly man next to her turned his head. Kate felt his gaze, but didn't turn. It could be anyone looking. But he looked for a long time, intently, and finally spoke quietly. "Excuse me for interfering. Those glasses were a gift from your husband." Kate turned in surprise. The man was looking not at her, but at the glasses in her hands. His gaze was sharp, professional. The way a master looks at his tool. "Yes. How did you know?" "I don't know for sure, but I assumed." Judging by the frame, they weren't bought in a regular optical shop. This is a custom order, a one-of-a-kind piece. Women usually choose their own glasses, trying them on for a long time. But when a man buys them, he gets what looks expensive and beautiful. It's not quite your style, to be honest. The frame is a bit heavy for your face. But that's not the point. He paused, as if deciding whether to continue. Kate waited. Something in his calm, measured tone kept her from turning away and ignoring him. The man held out his hand. "May I?" Kate hesitated for a second, then gave him the glasses. He took them gently, turned them to the light coming from the bus window, brought them closer to his eyes, tilting them at different angles, and ran his finger along the arm, slowly feeling every millimeter. "Right here." He pointed to the spot where the arm connected to the hinge. "See, the arm is slightly thicker than standard, and the seam is different. It's been taken apart and put back together. And not at the factory, but by hand. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be? You said yourself it was a custom order." "Maybe, and maybe not. I've been repairing glasses for 40 years. I had my own workshop. I retired 3 years ago, but the habit remains. I look at a frame, like an old shoemaker looks at a shoe. The hands remember." He took a small leather case from his inner coat pocket and opened it. Inside were miniature screwdrivers, tweezers, and a magnifying glass. Kate couldn't help but smile. "Do you always carry that with you?" "Always. For 50 years. Started when I was an apprentice, when I got a job as an optician. You know what doctors say? There are no former surgeons. Well, there are no former opticians either. Samuel, by the way, pleased to meet you. Kate, Catherine. A pleasure, Katie. Now, Katie, I'm going to show you something, and I just want you to not be alarmed." Samuel took the smallest screwdriver and carefully, almost tenderly, began to unscrew a tiny screw on the left temple. His hands were old, with age spots, but his fingers moved with the precision and confidence of a watchmaker. The bus swayed on the uneven road, but it didn't bother him. It was clear that his hands were used to working in any conditions. Kate watched, holding her breath. The man unscrewed the panel of the temple. Underneath, there was a small cavity that shouldn't be in ordinary glasses, and in this cavity, pressed against the walls, was a fine grayish powder. Just a pinch, but it was there. Kate stared at the powder, not understanding what it was. Samuel didn't answer right away. He unscrewed the second temple. It was the same cavity, the same powder. He brought the temple to his nose, sniffed, and grimaced slightly. Listen to me carefully, Katie. I'm not a chemist. I'm an optician. But in my 40 years of work, I've come across exactly the same cases twice. A cavity in the arm, a powder inside. The first time was back in the 90s. A woman brought in her glasses for repair, complaining that they made her eyes water. I took them apart and found the same powder. It turned out her ex-husband had put it there. The second time was about 10 years ago. A different story, but the same principle. Someone deliberately puts a substance in the frame that, upon contact with the skin and body heat, begins to slowly evaporate. Microscopic particles get into the mucous membrane of the eyes. Not immediately, not sharply, but gradually. Day after day, week after week. The irritation builds up, the vision deteriorates, and doctors can't find the cause because they're looking for a disease, not a poisoning. Kate listened, feeling the floor of the bus giving way beneath her. Everything around her, the swaying of the bus, the voices of the passengers, the noise of the engine, receded into the distance, and all that remained was Samuel's face and his words, falling one after another like stones into still water. Are you saying that someone did this on purpose? I'm saying that these temples have been modified. They have a cavity that doesn't exist in standard frames, not even in expensive custom-made ones. And in this cavity, there is a powder that is not part of the design. You can draw your own conclusions, but let me tell you this. I don't know what this substance is. It could be harmless dust, or it might not be. It needs to be tested. Take it to any independent laboratory for analysis. There are many of them now. Tell them you need a chemical analysis of a powdered substance, and until you get the results, do not wear these glasses. Don't even touch them with your bare hands. Put them in a bag. Kate was silent. There was a lump in her throat, and she couldn't swallow. Her thoughts were racing, clinging to each other, and then scattering. Ethan had given her these glasses. Ethan had insisted she wear them all the time. Ethan got angry when she took them off. Ethan had dissuaded her from going to the doctor. No, it's impossible. It's crazy. It's some paranoid delusion. And this old man could just be a madman who takes apart other people's glasses on the bus. But the powder was there. She had seen it with her own eyes, the same eyes that had been burning for a month. Samuel, her voice sounded hollow, like a stranger's. Are you sure? Maybe it's just dust? Some dirt got in? The old man looked at her over his glasses. His gaze was not pitying or stern, just very calm. Dirt isn't put into specially carved out cavities, Katie. Dirt isn't packed so carefully that it doesn't spill out, but evaporates gradually through a microhole. Look here. See the small holes on the inner side of the temple? You can't see them from the outside. They're hidden by a decorative plate, but they're there, and they were made intentionally. Through them, the powder comes into contact with the air and skin. I'm not going to convince you, I'm just telling you. Get it checked for your own sake. The bus pulled up to a stop, and Kate realized it was hers. She mechanically stood up, and Samuel handed her the glasses, neatly folded, with the arms screwed back in place. Wait. He took a worn business card from his pocket and wrote a phone number on the back. I can recommend a lab and, if necessary, I'll confirm my words anywhere. I'm an old man, I have nothing to lose, and no reason to lie. Kate took the card. The letters blurred before her eyes, either from tears or from the very vision that was failing, not without reason. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Nothing to thank me for yet. You can thank me when you figure this out. And Katie, be careful. If this is what I think it is, don't let on. The person who did this shouldn't know that you know. Kate got off the bus. The doors closed behind her with a pneumatic hiss. The bus rolled on, carrying away the elderly man with a set of miniature screwdrivers in a leather case. And Kate stood at the bus stop, holding the glasses in her hand, not on her face, but in her hand like a venomous snake that she could neither let go of nor press to herself. It was a 7-minute walk home. She walked slowly, breathing in the cold autumn air. Without her glasses, the world was blurry, but for the first time in a month, her eyes didn't burn. There was no stinging, no burning, no sensation of sand under her eyelids. Just a fuzzy picture, and that was it. And this difference, this contrast between with glasses and without glasses, was a stark revelation because it spoke for itself. At home, Kate took off her shoes in the hallway and hung up her jacket. The kitchen smelled of cooked pasta. Lily must have made dinner for herself. Ethan wasn't there. A note in his handwriting was on the fridge, running late at work. Don't wait up. A familiar note, familiar words. Before, Kate wouldn't have given it a second thought. Now, every letter looked different. Kate went into the bedroom, took a Ziploc bag out of the dresser, and carefully placed the glasses inside. Her hands were shaking. She shoved the bag into the far corner of the drawer, under a stack of winter sweaters. Then she took out her old glasses from the nightstand, the ordinary, cheap ones she wore before Ethan's gift. They were a weaker prescription, but at least they didn't make her eyes burn. Lily looked into the bedroom. "Mom, what's wrong? You're so pale." "It's nothing, sweetie. Just tired. My blood pressure, probably." "Where are your new glasses? You're wearing your old ones." "The new ones are rubbing the bridge of my nose. I decided to wear the old ones for a while." "Oh, okay. Do you want some pasta? I made it with cheese, just how you like it." "Yes, please. I'll be right there." Kate sat on the bed for another minute after Lily had left, staring at the dresser drawer where the bag with the glasses lay. Then she shifted her gaze to the wedding photo on the wall. She and Ethan, 15 years ago. Young, smiling, completely happy. She in a white dress, he in a suit, both squinting from the sun. When Ethan returned around 10 p.m., Kate was already in bed, turned to the wall. He came into the bedroom, stood for a moment, then asked quietly, "Are you asleep?" Kate didn't answer. She breathed evenly, pretending to be asleep. Ethan stood for another second, then left. She heard him go to the kitchen, open the refrigerator, and rattle something. Then the bathroom door slammed, and the water started running. Kate lay with her eyes open, staring at the wall. In the semi-darkness, the wallpaper pattern was visible, small flowers that she herself had chosen for the bedroom during the renovation. Once, they had seemed cozy. Now, they blurred before her eyes, and Kate didn't know if it was from tears or from the powder that had been slowly destroying her vision for a month. She couldn't sleep. She lay awake until dawn, listening to Ethan's steady breathing beside her and trying to process what had happened on the bus. By morning, her temples were aching, and her jaw was sore. She had been clenching her teeth all night. For 2 days, Kate walked around in a fog, and it wasn't because of her vision. She went through the motions of her work, cooked dinner, talked to Lily, and answered Ethan's questions, and all the while, another, invisible life was unfolding inside her. She replayed every word of Samuel's, every gesture, every detail, in her mind. The cavity in the arm, the powder, the microholes. The person who did this shouldn't know that you know. On the 3rd day, when Ethan had left for work and Lily had gone to school, Kate took the bag with the glasses from under the sweaters. Her hands were trembling, and she took several deep breaths before picking up her phone and dialing the number from Samuel's business card. He answered after the second ring. His voice was cheerful, as if he had been expecting the call. "Katie, hello? I thought you would call sooner." I needed to think. I understand." "Well, have you decided to get it checked?" "Yes. But I don't know where to go. Can you recommend a lab?" Samuel gave her the address and name, an independent chemical analysis laboratory that accepted private orders. He explained what to say at the entrance, what analysis to request, and warned that the results would be ready in 3 to 4 business days. "And one more thing, Katie. When you submit it, ask for an official report with a seal. Not just a certificate, but a formal report. You might need it later." Do you think it will come to that? I don't think anything. I just know that a paper with a seal is never a bad thing. Trust an old man. Kate went to the laboratory that same day, having taken time off work under the pretext of a doctor's appointment. The lab was located in a nondescript building on the edge of an industrial zone. A gray 5-story building with a sign that Kate could barely make out even with her old glasses. Inside, it was clean and smelled of something medicinal. A young woman in a white coat sat behind the counter. "Hello. I need a chemical analysis of a powdered substance. Where is the sample from?" "From the frame of a pair of glasses." "I found a powder inside the arm." The woman looked at Kate a little more closely, but didn't ask any more questions. She took the bag, wrote out a receipt, and told her the cost. Kate paid and left, feeling a mixture of relief and nausea. The step had been taken. There was no going back. The next 4 days were the longest of her life. Kate went to work, cooked, cleaned, did laundry, and waited every minute for a call from the lab. Ethan noticed she wasn't wearing the gifted glasses and asked several times why. "They're rubbing, I told you. So let's get them adjusted. I can stop by the shop where I ordered them." "No need. I'm fine in my old ones for now." "Kate, your old ones are too weak. You see even worse in them. Seriously, let me take the new ones and get them adjusted." "No, Ethan, I'll handle it." He fell silent, but Kate saw, even with her weakened vision, the muscle in his cheek twitch. Barely noticeable, for a split second. Before, she wouldn't have noticed. Now, she noticed everything. She started to watch her husband. Not obviously, not demonstratively, she just stopped looking away. Before, Ethan had seemed like an ordinary husband, no worse and no better than others. Hardworking, didn't drink, brought home a paycheck, made fried potatoes, sometimes joked with their daughter. Not a romantic, but who is after 15 years of marriage? He liked his shirts and cologne, but that's a good thing. To take care of himself. He worked late sometimes, but who doesn't? But now she looked with different eyes. She noticed how he would take his phone into the bathroom and close the door, how he would quickly hide the screen when Kate entered the room, how on Saturday he went to a business meeting in a fresh shirt, and with that same cologne he only wore on special occasions, how he came back late, with a slightly distracted, relaxed look, and went straight into the shower. On the 4th day, the lab called. Kate was at her desk, checking invoices. She saw an unfamiliar number and stepped out into the hallway. "Catherine, your analysis results are ready. You can pick them up in person or we can send them to your email." "Send them to my email, and I'll come by for the original." 10 minutes later, Kate was sitting in the office restroom, the only place she could be alone, reading the report on her phone screen, holding it close to her eyes. The letters were blurry, and she zoomed in, swiping her finger across the screen. A powdered substance was found in the cavity of the eyeglass temples. Composition: a mixture containing components that, with prolonged contact with the mucous membranes, cause severe irritation and inflammatory reaction, and can lead to a gradual decrease in visual acuity. The substance is not a standard component of optical products. The nature of its placement indicates a deliberate introduction into the frame's construction. Kate reread the last line 3 times. Deliberate introduction into the frame's construction. Deliberate. Not an accident, not a factory defect, not dust or dirt. Someone had intentionally, consciously, placed this poison in the glasses she wore every day, from morning to night, pressing them against her temples, her skin, her eyes. She lowered the phone and stared at the tiled wall. White tiles, gray grout, a crack in the corner. The faucet was dripping, a steady, monotonous sound, like a metronome. Kate sat, unable to move. There were no tears, no screams. She called Samuel. Her voice didn't tremble. She was surprised herself at how steady it was. "Samuel, it's confirmed." There was a pause on the other end. "I was hoping I was wrong, Katie. I really was, but alas, what should I do? First, don't let on. Second, go to the police. But before you go to the police, I would do something else. I would check why he needed to do this. Money, property, insurance, there's always a reason for these things. Find the reason, and you'll have the full picture. It will be easier for the police to work with that too. After work, Kate didn't go home. She went straight to a cafe, across the street from the bus stop, ordered a tea she didn't drink, and called Natalie. Natalie was her only close friend. They had been friends since high school, went to community college together, and had gotten through the 90s and 2000s together. Natalie worked as an administrator at a dental clinic, lived alone after her divorce, and was the kind of person you could call at 3 a.m. Nat, I need to talk to you. Not on the phone. Can you come? What's wrong, Kate? What happened? Not on the phone, please. Natalie arrived in 40 minutes, bursting into the cafe, out of breath, her jacket unbuttoned. She sat down across from her and grabbed Kate's hands. Talk. Kate told her everything from the beginning, from the first problems with her eyes to the meeting on the bus and the lab report. Natalie listened in silence, her expression changing from bewilderment to horror, from horror to fury. I'll kill him, Natalie said when Kate had finished. I'll personally go and kill him. Nat, no one needs to kill anyone. I need help. I need a good lawyer, and I need to check something before I go to the police. Check what? Why he did it. Samuel said there's always a reason for these things. I have to understand what he was after. Natalie nodded, having already gotten over the first wave of emotion. She took out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. I have a lawyer. A good guy. Helped my sister with the property division during her divorce. Tough, but competent. I'll call him tomorrow and set something up. They sat in the cafe for another hour, drinking cold tea, talking quietly, leaning towards each other. The waitress came by twice to ask if they needed anything. They waved her away. When Kate finally got ready to go home, Natalie squeezed her hand. Kate, you're strong. You'll get through this. But promise me, if it gets really hard, you'll call, anytime, even at 3 a.m. I promise. Kate got home around 9 p.m. Ethan was home, sitting in front of the TV with a plate of sandwiches. Lily was doing her homework in her room. A normal evening. Kate came in, hung up her jacket, said hello, and went into the bathroom to wash her face and pull herself together before facing her husband with a normal expression. In the mirror, a woman with red eyes and dark circles looked back at her. Kate turned on the faucet, cupped her hands with cold water, and pressed them to her face. She stood like that for a minute, then straightened up, blotted her face with a towel, exhaled, and went out. Want some dinner? Ethan asked without turning around. No, thanks, I'm not hungry. You haven't been eating well lately. Maybe you should take some vitamins. Maybe. Kate sat on the edge of the sofa. A TV show was on. People in uniform were running down corridors. Someone was shouting. Ethan was chewing a sandwich and watching, relaxed, with one leg crossed over the other. Sweatpants, a t-shirt, warm socks. An ordinary husband on an ordinary evening. A man she had known for 15 years. Kate sat next to him, thinking that this man, chewing a sausage sandwich, had been methodically, day by day, poisoning her eyesight. The next day, Saturday, Ethan went out again. Partners from work are calling to discuss a project. I'll be back by lunch. Kate nodded, watched him from the kitchen window, and waited 15 minutes in case he came back for a forgotten phone or keys. Then she went into their bedroom. Ethan's laptop was on the desk, the lid closed. Kate knew the password. He hadn't changed it in years. His mother's birthday, typed backward. He had given it to her himself once, when she needed to print train tickets and he wasn't home. He probably didn't think he would ever need to change it. Kate opened the laptop and entered the password. The desktop loaded. Standard wallpaper. Folders with work documents. She opened the messenger. Her hands were sweating, and she wiped them on her sweatpants before she started scrolling through the chats. She found it quickly. She didn't even have to look hard. The conversation was at the top of the list, with a woman named Marina. The profile picture was a blonde with bright makeup and large earrings. Kate started reading, and with each message, the world, which was already cracking at the seams, fell apart completely. The affair had been going on for over a year. Marina worked at the same construction company, in a different department. The correspondence was typical. Affectionate words, plans for meetings, photos from restaurants, and trips Kate knew nothing about. Ethan wrote to Marina things he hadn't said to his wife in years, tender words, jokes, promises. But that wasn't what interested Kate now. She scrolled further, skipping the romantic nonsense, looking for something else, and found it. A conversation with a person saved in his contacts as Lawyer D. Dry, businesslike messages. Kate read, and the letters jumped before her eyes, not from her vision, but because her hands were shaking. Ethan, question about power of attorney. If a wife is unable to manage her property due to her health, can a general power of attorney be issued to her husband? Lawyer D. It's possible, but you need medical confirmation. A doctor's note stating that she is unable to make decisions on her own, or a notarized power of attorney, signed by her voluntarily. Ethan. And if she loses her sight, completely or almost completely, she won't be able to read documents, she won't see what she's signing. Lawyer D. That simplifies the procedure, but formally, her signature is required. A notary can come to the house. If she asks her husband to help with her affairs herself, everything will go smoothly. Ethan. When she's completely blind, she'll ask me herself, what choice will she have? And I'll put the apartment up for sale and transfer the money. Then a divorce. Clean and fast. Kate reread the last message and slowly leaned back in her chair. There it was. That was the reason Samuel had talked about. The apartment. Her grandmother's apartment, registered in Kate's name. The only serious asset in their family. A 2-bedroom in a good neighborhood, not a new building, but a solid one with developed infrastructure. Such apartments were worth good money now. Ethan was planning to blind his wife, make her sign a power of attorney, sell the apartment, take the money, and leave for Marina. Simple and cynical, like a business plan, Lily peeked into the room. Mom, what are you doing on Dad's computer? Kate flinched and quickly minimized the window. I needed to look up something for work. Oh, okay. I'm going to Ashley's. We're preparing a biology report. I'll be back in the evening. Okay, sweetie, just call me when you're on your way back. Lily left. Kate opened the laptop again. Methodically, message by message, she photographed the screen with her phone. The conversation with Marina, the conversation with the lawyer, another conversation with some person from whom Ethan, judging by the messages, had bought that very powder. The messages were cautious, vague, but the essence was clear between the lines. Ethan asked about the substance, was interested in the dosage and the time frame for the result. The person replied briefly, 3 to 4 months with daily contact. Complete loss is unlikely, but it will definitely lead to -9. Much depends on the individual reaction. Kate took screenshots of everything, copied the correspondence to a flash drive that Lily had once lost and Kate had found behind the sofa. Then she carefully closed all the windows, checked that the browser history looked as it had before, and closed the laptop. She placed it exactly as it had been, slightly askew with the right corner to the edge of the desk. Ethan might not have noticed, but Kate didn't want to risk it. She went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and stood by the window for a long time, looking at the courtyard, the playground, the swings, the bench where the grandmothers sat in the summer. Now the bench was empty, wet from the morning rain. The leaves were stuck to the asphalt in orange patches. An ordinary autumn courtyard. An ordinary life. Only within this ordinary life, one person was methodically destroying the sight of another to take an apartment and go to his mistress. And that person was her husband. Kate didn't cry. The tears were somewhere deep inside, locked behind that icy heaviness that had settled in her chest back in the office restroom when she was reading the lab report. Instead of tears, something else came, a cold, distinct clarity, as if the very fog that had clouded her eyes had cleared not from the outside, but from the inside. Kate suddenly saw her life with frightening clarity. She saw all those moments that she had previously attributed to fatigue, character, habit, how Ethan had gradually pushed her away from the family finances. Don't worry your head about it, I'll handle it. How he had stopped consulting with her on major purchases. How, imperceptibly, little by little, he had taken away her sense of control over her own life. She took out her phone and called Natalie. Nat, I found everything. The correspondence with his mistress, the correspondence with the lawyer about the power of attorney, and the correspondence about buying that powder. I photographed everything and copied it. There was silence on the other end. Then Natalie exhaled. Kate, listen to me. I've already spoken to the lawyer. He's ready to meet on Monday. His name is Andrew. He's a tough guy, but that's exactly what you need right now. Come at 10, I'll send you the address. And Kate, you're amazing. You're incredibly amazing. Just hold on a little longer. Kate hung up, stood by the window for another minute, then poured the water from the glass into the sink, washed the glass, put it in the drying rack, and wiped the table. Familiar, mechanical movements. Her hands were doing one thing, but her head was already in Monday, in the lawyer's office, at the police station, in the courtroom. There was a war ahead, but for the first time in this nightmarish month, Kate felt not fear, but determination. Cold, hard, like winter ice on a river. If you step carefully, it will hold. On Monday morning, Kate told Ethan she was going to the dentist. She had made the appointment a long time ago and kept putting it off. He nodded without looking up from his phone, and Kate caught herself thinking that before, his habit of nodding without looking had just seemed like inattentiveness. Now she understood. He didn't care. He hadn't cared for a long time where she was going or what was happening to her. He was only interested in one thing, that she continued to wear the glasses. The lawyer Andrew's office was on the third floor of an old administrative building, the kind they built back in the 70s. Wide corridors, linoleum floors, doors with nameplates. Kate found the right door and knocked. A short man in his 50s, with a short-cropped gray head and an attentive, slightly squinting gaze, opened it. On his desk was a mug with the inscription, "World's Best Grandpa." Next to it were stacks of folders and a worn-out planner. "Catherine, come in. Natalie told me about you, but I'd like to hear everything from you personally. From the very beginning." Kate sat down in the chair opposite the desk and began to tell her story. Andrew listened in silence, not interrupting, making short notes in his planner. When Kate got to the lab report and the screenshots of the correspondence, he asked to see them. Kate handed him her phone. The lawyer scrolled through the photos slowly, pausing on each screen. His face didn't change, but Kate noticed how the knuckles of his fingers holding the phone turned white. "So," he said at last, returning the phone, "we have a lab report on the composition of the substance, correspondence with a lawyer about a power of attorney, correspondence indicating the acquisition of the substance, and correspondence with a woman confirming the existence of another family. Catherine, I'll be blunt with you. This is a serious criminal case, intentional infliction of bodily harm. If the examination confirms that the substance did indeed cause the deterioration of your vision, and I think it will, your husband will receive a real sentence. But for that, we need to do everything right, without rushing and without making mistakes. What do I need to do? First, we go to the police, not the local precinct, but straight to the detective bureau. I know who to talk to. You'll file a report, attach the lab report, and copies of the correspondence. Second, you need to undergo a full medical examination, an ophthalmological one, to record the current state of your vision and the consequences of the exposure. This will form the basis of the evidence. Third, the apartment. You said it's registered in your name. Yes, it was my grandmother's. I inherited it before the marriage. Excellent. That means it's not marital property. Your husband has no rights to it in principle, but he could have gained access through a power of attorney if you had signed it while in a vulnerable state. We'll prevent that. I'll prepare a statement to prohibit any transactions with the apartment without your personal presence. Just in case. Kate listened and nodded. Andrew's voice, calm, businesslike, and confident, acted as a painkiller. For the first time in days, someone wasn't gasping, wasn't horrified, wasn't saying "I'll kill him," but was simply breaking down the situation and explaining what to do next. That was exactly what she needed right now. They went to the detective bureau together that same day. Andrew led Kate past the front desk, up to the second floor, and knocked on a door with a nameplate that read, Detective Rogers. A middle-aged man with a tired face and a cup of coffee in his hand opened the door. "Andrew, long time no see. What have you got for me?" "It's serious, Mark. Intentional infliction of bodily harm. We have a victim, a lab report, and the suspect's correspondence." We need to open a case. The detective invited them in. The office was small, cluttered with folders. A dry geranium in a cracked pot sat on the windowsill. Kate told her story again, more confidently this time, because the lawyer was sitting next to her, and his presence gave her strength. Detective Rogers listened seriously, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. Do you have the glasses with you? Yes. Kate took the Ziploc bag out of her purse. Here. I haven't touched them since I put them in here. Good. We'll order our own forensic examination. We'll take your lab report into consideration, but for the court, we need a state examination. The correspondence, the screenshots, I'll attach them to the case. But we'll also need to seize your husband's laptop for a technical examination to confirm the authenticity of the correspondence. When will that be? I'll try to do it as quickly as possible. If your lab's findings are confirmed by our examination, and I see no reason to doubt it, a case will be opened within a few days. Your husband will be called in for questioning, possibly detained. Do you have a place to stay if you need to leave the apartment? The apartment is mine, Kate said. He's the one who will have to leave. Rogers looked at her a little more closely and nodded. Right. But until the court's decision, be careful. Don't provoke a conflict. Act as usual. We'll handle everything. The next few days, Kate was in a state of waiting. She went to work, cooked dinner, talked to Lily about school, and watched TV with Ethan in the evenings. She played the role of an ordinary wife, and that was the hardest thing she had ever done in her life. To sit next to the person who wanted to blind her, to put food on his plate, to answer his perfunctory questions. How was work? Did Lily get in math? And not to give herself away with a gesture, a look, or a tremor in her voice. Ethan didn't notice anything, or pretended not to. He still occasionally asked about the glasses. So you still haven't taken them to be adjusted, and Kate still made excuses. He would frown but didn't press the issue. Maybe he thought time was on his side, that her eyes would continue to weaken without the glasses from the exposure she had already received. 5 days later, Andrew called. Catherine, the forensic examination is complete. The results match your initial report. A case has been opened. Your husband will be arrested tomorrow. I want you to be prepared for this. It would be best for you to be at home with your daughter at that time. Will they arrest him at work? Yes, at his workplace. It will be calmer for everyone that way, the investigator said. They'll come in the morning, around 10. Kate hung up and sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the wall. Through the wall, she could hear Lily laughing while talking to a friend on the phone. Kate thought that tomorrow she would have to tell her daughter the truth. Not all of it. Lily was 14. She didn't need the details, but the basics would have to be told. And the thought of that was more painful than anything else combined. Not for herself, but for her daughter, for the girl who loved her father, and who would find out tomorrow what he was capable of. In the morning, Kate sent Lily to school as usual. Ethan left for work at 8:30, giving his wife a peck on the cheek, on his way out, a habitual, meaningless gesture they had been making for 15 years. Kate closed the door behind him and leaned against it. She stood like that for a minute, then moved away and began to wait. Around 11, Detective Rogers called. Catherine, your husband has been detained. He was calm during the arrest, although he seemed to be in shock. He denies everything. He says he knows nothing about any powder. But we've seized the laptop. The correspondence has been confirmed. He will be interrogated, and then the judge will decide on bail. Thank you. You're welcome. Stay strong. That evening, Kate picked Lily up from school, meeting her at the gate, something she hadn't done in a couple of years. Lily was surprised, but happy. They walked home, and Kate felt her daughter's warm hand in hers and couldn't find the right words. At home, she sat Lily down on the sofa, sat next to her, and took her hands. Lily, I need to tell you something. It's important, and it's not going to be pleasant, but I want you to hear it from me, not from someone else. Lily looked at her with wide eyes, already understanding that something serious had happened. Mom, what? What happened? Kate told her briefly, without unnecessary details, that her father had done a bad thing, that he had put a substance in her glasses that was ruining her mother's eyesight, that he had wanted to take the apartment and leave, that the police had arrested him, and now there would be a trial. Lily listened in silence, then turned to the wall and sat there for a long time, motionless. Kate didn't touch her. She waited. Finally, Lily turned around. Her eyes were dry, but her face was completely adult. The 14-year-old girl had aged several years in 5 minutes. "I knew something was wrong," Lily said quietly. "I didn't know what, but I felt it. He was always angry when you took off your glasses. And when you didn't wear them, I thought you looked better. I thought I was imagining it." "You weren't imagining it, sweetie. Mom, are we alone now?" Kate hugged her daughter, held her close, and buried her nose in her hair, which smelled of the children's shampoo Lily stubbornly continued to buy, even though she had long considered herself a grown-up. "We're not alone. We have each other, and that's enough." The trial took place 2 months later. 2 months during which Kate underwent a full medical examination that confirmed the deterioration of her vision and the damage to her mucous membranes from chemical exposure. 2 months of interrogations, confrontations, paperwork, and waiting. Andrew handled the case toughly and competently, as promised. Natalie came over every other day, bringing food and sitting with Lily when Kate had to go to the investigator. Samuel testified as a witness and expert, explaining in detail to the court the construction of the modified arms. At the trial, Ethan looked like a different person. There was no confidence, no composure, none of the condescending softness with which he had spoken to his wife. He sat in the defendant's dock in a wrinkled shirt, with a gray face and a shifting gaze. When the charges were read, he tried several times to say something that he didn't mean it, that he didn't understand the consequences, that it was just stupidity, that he was remorseful. Ethan's lawyer argued for probation, citing his lack of a criminal record and the presence of a daughter. Kate sat in the courtroom and looked at the man she had lived with for 15 years. She looked at him without hatred. The hatred had burned out over those 2 months, burned to ashes, leaving behind only exhaustion. She looked at Ethan and saw a stranger, a man she had probably never really known. The court gave him 3 years of probation. Kate did not object to the sentence. She no longer cared how much time he got. What mattered was something else: the divorce, the compensation, and her freedom. The divorce was finalized quickly. The apartment remained with Kate. Property inherited was not subject to division. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The court awarded her compensatory damages, a sum that was enough for a good ophthalmologist and a full course of treatment. Ethan signed all the papers silently, without looking up. The last time Kate saw him was when he came to collect his things from the apartment. He came with a large sports bag, packing his shirts, shoes, and some folders. Lily locked herself in her room and didn't come out. Ethan stood in front of her door, raised his hand to knock, and then lowered it. He turned to Kate, who was standing in the hallway. "Kate, don't, Ethan. Just take your things and go." He left. The door closed. Kate turned the lock twice, although she had always only locked it once before. She stood in the quiet hallway, listening to his footsteps fade down the stairs. Then she exhaled deeply, with her whole chest, in a way she hadn't in a very long time. The treatment took several months. Kate went to the ophthalmologist twice a week. Procedures, drops, special eye exercises. The doctor, an elderly woman with warm hands and a stern voice, said the prognosis was good. The damage hadn't affected the deep structures, and the mucous membrane was recovering. Her vision would return gradually. "You were lucky," she said, looking at Kate over her glasses. "A couple more months of that exposure, and the consequences would have been irreversible." Kate nodded. Lucky. Lucky that on that autumn evening she had gotten on that particular bus, in that particular seat, next to an elderly man who had been repairing glasses for 40 years and carried a set of miniature screwdrivers in his coat pocket. Samuel became a family friend. It happened on its own, without effort or arrangement. He called a week after the trial to ask how she was doing. Then Kate invited him for tea, and he came in the same neat coat with a box of marshmallows and a bag of thyme he had picked himself in the summer at his cabin. Lily was shy at first, but after half an hour, she was showing him something on her phone and laughing. Samuel told stories from his workshop about the glasses of celebrities he had repaired, about the eccentrics who ordered frames made of unusual materials, about his late wife, Tamra, who had worn the same round glasses her whole life and refused to change them for anything more fashionable. He told his stories well, unhurriedly, with details, with that special warmth that people who have lived a long time and have learned to appreciate the little things have. One day, when Lily had left the room, Samuel said quietly, "You know, Katie, I had a daughter, Alice. She died in an accident 20 years ago. She was 32. I've been living alone ever since. My wife died 5 years after Alice. Not from illness, from grief. For years, I walked the streets and didn't understand why. And then, I got on a bus, and there you were, with those glasses. I understood then, that's why. To be in the right place at the right time?" Kate didn't know what to say, only placed her hand on his, which was dry, warm, with the gnarled fingers of a craftsman. And they sat like that in silence, listening to Lily humming something to herself behind the wall. Lily started calling him Grandpa. At first, by accident, "Grandpa Samuel, please pass the sugar." Then she looked around, embarrassed, and blushed. Samuel smiled, and the wrinkles around his eyes gathered into radiant bunches. "Grandpa is good. I can be Grandpa." Winter passed. Spring arrived, early, with melting snow and puddles, with the first birds outside the window, and the smell of wet earth that seeped in even through the closed windows. Kate sat by the kitchen window, without her glasses, and looked at the courtyard. She saw everything: the swings on which a child in a red jacket was swinging, the bench where 2 women with strollers were sitting, the pigeons walking on the pavement, comically nodding their heads. The birch tree by the entrance, with its swollen buds, small, shiny, ready to burst. She saw clearly, not perfectly. The doctor said that -1 would probably remain. But that was a trifle. It could be corrected with ordinary glasses, or not corrected at all. A trifle. After what had happened, an absolute trifle. Lily came out of her room and looked over her shoulder. "Mom, it's beautiful, isn't it? Spring. It's beautiful, sweetie. Very." Grandpa Samuel called. He asked if we're free on Saturday. He wants to take us to his cabin to show us where the thyme grows. We are. We definitely are. Lily went back to her room, and a minute later, music came from behind the door. Something light, spring-like. Kate smiled. The kettle on the stove started to whistle, a thin, piercing sound, like a small bird. Kate got up, turned off the gas, took out a mug, put in some thyme, the same one from Samuel, and poured boiling water over it. A tart, slightly bitter aroma filled the kitchen. Kate returned to the window with the mug in her hands. Steam rose from the tea, and through it, the world outside the glass seemed slightly blurry. But this was not the fog that had clouded her eyes before. It was just steam, warm, quickly disappearing, transparent, like all the bad things that had happened to her over these months. It had happened, it had burned, but it had passed. It had melted away, and behind it, a world had opened up, clear, bright, real. A world in which there was a daughter who called a stranger, Grandpa. A friend who would come at 3 a.m. An elderly craftsman who carried screwdrivers in his pocket and believed that nothing in life is a coincidence. Kate looked at the spring courtyard and thought that vision is not just about the eyes. It's about the ability to see people for who they are. To see the lie behind a beautiful frame and the kindness behind a worn-out coat. To see who extends a hand to help and who extends it to take. She had been learning this her whole life, but she understood it on an ordinary city bus on an ordinary autumn evening when a strange old man asked her to take off her glasses. And now she saw clearly, truly clearly, for the first time in a very long time.